fact that I caused my own infertility, that weighs on me.
Well, Jackie, thank you so much for coming by Us Weekly to talk about your brand new book, The Weight of Beautiful. I've been saying it. We have like a Housewives show every week, and I'm saying I literally couldn't put it down.
Oh, thank you so much.
It's so eye-opening. I commend you for putting your story out there because there's a lot of difficult parts in that book.
Yeah.
So why now? Why write this book now?
People don't talk about eating disorders because they're not glamorous, and there's a lot of shame involved and a lot of secrecy. So once I began the recovery process and realized that I was going to make it through recovery, I realized that there's so many people like me who struggle with eating disorders, and they have so many secrets and they can't talk about it. And I really wanted to open up conversations and make it something that wasn't shameful and help people, get through them.
And how did writing this book help you in your recovery process?
Oh, it was amazing because, well, for a few reasons. I could get these traumatic memories out of just my head and put them down on paper and kind of like release them, right? But they also forced me to confront certain things that I never came to terms with. The way that my eating disorder impacted more than just me.
Sure.
Like I had convinced myself that it was only me who was suffering, and that let me live in a bit of denial and keep going. But I really had to examine the ways that my relationship with food impacted my family, people I love, my friends, my life. And I think seeing how negative and torturous the whole process was. Nobody knew how severe it was. Evan said that he knew a lot, not everything, but he knew a lot. He loved the book. My mother felt a lot of guilt, and I didn't want her to feel bad. That's not why I was writing it.
What was the hardest thing for you to put down on paper?
I think it was what I forced my children to watch.
Yeah.
I didn't want to at first, and then I realized there were parts of this that were so dark that I had to tell the full story. I don't kid myself. I now talk to them about this stuff the way I can, and I let them always see me, eating, but I know that they watched some really destructive habits taking place for a long time. So I hope that I can undo that damage.
This started back in high school, pretty much. Going to college, you went, did it start like when you went to that doctor's office?
Yeah.
And, you kind of stepped on that scale and he was like, you have to lose weight to go to college. And did that
That was where my disordered eating started. When I moved as a 13-year-old, I was very lonely. I didn't make any friends. I felt really isolated, and I started eating for comfort. And that's where I was using food in a way that food is not meant to be used. And I gained a lot of weight, and when my doctor told me that I wouldn't enjoy college if I went there fat, I started connecting overweight to trauma and thin to happiness. I do cry thinking about some of this stuff because I'm like sad at how I treated myself, and I feel like I wasted a lot of beautiful times in my life just torturing myself with food. Like my honeymoon, I spent my honeymoon in Italy literally starving. I didn't eat anything, and I remember one night all I could do was like scrape tomato sauce off of a piece of bread and eat that for dinner. And I just, there's a lot that makes me sad, but also I took these real moments of trauma and treating myself horribly and turned them into something that can now, educate the world and help people and, make other people who struggle like I struggled feel less isolated. There were points where I knew that I was on a really destructive, dangerous path. You tell yourself a lot of stories and you convince yourself that, in a few weeks I'll quit. In a few months I'll quit. And, months turn into years.
I felt for you as a mom, like wanting to have a baby, so bad. And then your body kind of rejecting that too because of how you were treating it. I mean, is that difficult for you to relive as well?
The fact that I had to go through IVF is less traumatic for me than the concept of being anorexic while I'm pregnant. and what I might have caused and what I could have potentially caused. I mean, I had 4 premature babies, and I don't know if that had to do with my malnourishment. I don't know what could have potentially happened. So that's the kind of stuff that makes me really sad. But you know, the fact that I caused my own infertility, that weighs on me.
Yeah.
It does.
And you talk about, you know, finally getting the help that worked for you. What was the light bulb that went off and you were like, I can't do this anymore?
You know, when you're younger, you don't ever think that like you're going to be old one day, but I knew what I was doing to my bones. I knew what I was doing to my health, and for the first time, I really let myself think about what my life might look like if I stopped. And it didn't look so bad. It's been 2 years. And there are times when I don't take any steps forward for, you know, a month. But then I'll take 2 steps forward, but I never have gone backwards.
Great.
So I'm about 80% through my recovery. There's a little bit left to go, and that's not, I don't have an eating disorder anymore. And I have had some, like, things happen in life that I used to use food as like a coping mechanism, and I have never used food in that way again. I completely separate, you know, food and body image from anything going on in life. So, no, I haven't had any setbacks.
Great. What about the Ozempic craze, especially with housewives, because it seems like a lot of housewives speak out about it. I had Dr. Terry DeBro here saying it's, you know, this is going to be better than Botox. He said that. What are your thoughts on something like that?
Okay, so I'll start by saying I don't judge people who are on Ozempic. And I don't think it's a bad thing if you have binge eating disorder or you struggle with obesity. I understand. And I also understand why someone would want to be thin. But I think it's a very dangerous path for somebody who just wants to lose the last 10 pounds and, you know, have a smaller size jeans or look good in a bathing suit. So it's hard for me from where I sit to look at these drugs as anything but inducing an eating disorder. You know, because anytime that you're substituting your hunger with something other than eating, to me, that's another form of an eating disorder, and I can't help but look at it like that.
It kind of sets you on that downward
spiral. And
spiral.
It's dangerous. I mean, like it's a life sentence because the studies, this is not me, like the studies all show that when you go off of it, you do gain the majority of weight back, and then you're going to have a world full of people who have to choose between staying on the drug forever or gaining back the weight, and you're going to have a lot of people who don't know what to do with themselves and who suddenly find themselves in a position with food and their body that they never saw themselves in before, and their good relationship with food is gone.
Yeah. You talk a lot about the show in the book too, and how, you know, you felt for so long, all right, I'm covering this up. I'm going to eat in certain points, and, you know, I'll have my cheat meal during the cast dinners and things like that. But when Margaret called you out and said, I think you have an issue with food, was that like, oh no, the jig is up and I have to, you know, kind of cover it up a little bit?
I had always known that was a possibility, and I had my stories ready to go. And I remember that I had a way of eating on camera where if somebody accused me of not eating, like I would save my eating for times when I had to eat on camera, and then I would starve the rest of my days away. But I always made sure that if I was in danger of being called out, that I could be like, what are you talking about? Look at what I just ate, you know? So I always saved up to make sure that I was ready. And in that moment, I mean, my stomach turned because I was like, oh God, it's here. This is the moment. But I mean, I cried and I said, look, I just ate this and I just ate that. And, you know, it's hard to argue with that.
Yeah. You write about the whole Teresa Evan cheating drama and how that really
affected me.
Yeah, really put you in a dark spot. I mean, what was it about that may have, you know, even taken you over the edge even more? Yeah,
I think I felt really horrible about my desire to be on this show. You know, I begged Evan to let me be on the show. He didn't want to do it at first. And I had promised him that it was only about the women, that he was like an accessory, you know, like nothing would be about him and nothing would impact him. And so when it became about him and everyone was talking about whether or not, you know, this man, this beautiful man who like prides himself on like being a dad and, you know, his reputation, when suddenly his reputation was being like talked about everywhere, I felt so much tremendous guilt, and he was really upset about it. And then, you know, social media was just a disaster, and everyone was you know, choosing a side, and people were saying that he's cheating, and they know the trainer, and like people were just coming out of the woodwork with all of this crap. My kids knew what was going on because people at their school watched it, and their parents talked about it. So it was everywhere, and I couldn't deal with it. And my way of dealing with trauma was to not eat. So I got to a point where I was just like, not eating anymore.
Do you feel like if it wasn't for the show, in a way, maybe you wouldn't have held yourself accountable too, since like this is all on camera? I can't go back.
I don't know what else might have gotten me. I do think that having the show, having the whole world of reality TV viewers hold me accountable was so helpful. I do not think you need to be on a reality show to recover from an eating disorder, but for me, I used to wake up all the time and say, you know, maybe this week I'll be able to stop, and maybe next week. And I never did it. But I knew that if I opened it up and said it on reality TV, that I would not let all of these women and men who struggle themselves, who are watching me, I wouldn't say to them, you know what, actually, it's too hard. I'm not going to do it.
How does Teresa feel about what was written?
Yeah, I mean, she's okay with it.
Okay with it? Okay.
I mean, all this stuff is in our past, and we both acknowledge that, you know, we've been through it. We know that we have, and like we've both not been very nice to each other, and you know, it's okay. We're through it.
You're through it. I know you spoke a little bit on Watch What Happens Live. Margaret was here too, and said things aren't exactly where you would hope that it would be. Do you hope in the future that this friendship can get back to the way that it was?
I mean, you always hope, but we'll see what happens. I think there needs to be some conversation.
How do you feel different going into this season? I know, like you said, it's the second year of your recovery.
Yeah.
How do you approach the show now?
I mean, this year, I'm really enjoying the friend role. You know, I don't know what's to be in the future. For right now, I love being a friend. I'm really involved. There's nothing I would change right now. I feel very strong. I feel like I found my voice, and I feel like that is working very well for me.
Well, I am so happy for you.
Thank you.
I really am. And like I said, this is a must read, and you learn so much. And like I said, I commend you for putting it all out on the table. And it seems like you are in a very happy and healthy place. So thank you so much for sharing your story.
Thank you for taking the time.
Of course, thank you.